The house at the edge of silence. But on one winter night in 2000, that quiet house at the edge of Setagaya stopped being a home and became a crime scene that Japan still cannot explain. It happened on a quiet street. A family home tucked deep inside a peaceful neighborhood in Setagaya, Tokyo. A place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. A place where children played outside. Where neighbors trusted one another. Where the night was calm. Until it wasn't. Because on December 30th, 2000, someone entered the home of the Miyazawa family. Someone who knew how to move silently. Someone who brought violence unlike anything Japan had ever seen. And someone who stayed inside the house long after the killings were done. This is not just a murder. It is a puzzle. A ghost. A crime that left behind more evidence than anyone expected. And yet, no answers. This is the Setagaya family massacre. And 23 years later, the killer is still out there. The family at the center. They were ordinary. Kind. Unremarkable in all the ways that keep you safe from the world. So why did someone choose this family, in this house, on this night? Before the brutality, there was peace. The father. Mikio Miyazawa, 44 years old, a soft-spoken father, working for Interbrand. Smart. Calm. Devoted to his family. His wife, Yasuko. 41 years, she's warm and patient, a teacher in the community. Kindness in every interaction. Their daughter, Niina. 8 years old. Loved ballet and drawing. Bright smile. Soft voice. Their son, Rei. 6 years old. Shy. Sweet. Fascinated with trains. Autistic. Gentle. And quiet. A normal family. A safe home. A peaceful life. Nothing to suggest they were marked for death. Nothing to suggest someone wanted them gone. But when evil comes, it rarely announces itself. The night the lights went out. Somewhere between dinner dishes and bedtime routines. Someone else stepped into their story. And from that moment on, the night no longer belonged to the Miyazawas. December 30th, 2000. The night before New Year's Eve. Japan's most peaceful holiday. The Miyazawa family had dinner. Rei played in the living room. Niina practiced her dance steps upstairs. Mikio checked his emails. Yasuko prepared for bedtime. Routine. Comfort. Normalcy. But around 11 p.m., something changed. A noise. A disturbance. A presence stepping into their home. No forced entry. No broken locks. No shattered windows. Yet someone was there. Someone creeping through the darkness. What happened next is reconstructed from blood patterns, injuries, and the silent story the house still tells. First death, little Rei. The killer didn't start with the strongest. He started with the smallest. And what he did next proves this was never just a break-in, it was something much colder. Rei was found first. Still in his bed. Still under his blanket. Still holding onto the quiet innocence of a child. He was strangled. Quick. Silent. Deliberate. Whoever entered the house began with the smallest, quietest, most vulnerable member of the family. And not one of the others heard him die. Second death, Mikio. Mikio fought back. Hard. But as his struggle ended, the killer's rage was only beginning. And the violence that followed upstairs would shock even seasoned investigators. Something alerted Mikio. A sound. A shadow. A shift in the air. He rushed upstairs. He fought. He struggled. He resisted. Mikio suffered multiple stab wounds. Some from a knife the killer brought. Others from a knife the killer took from the family's kitchen after the first blade broke. Mikio died fighting for his family. But the killer did not stop there. Third and fourth deaths, Yasuko and Niina. For lives were gone. The house should have fallen quiet. Any normal killer would have run. But that's not what happened here. Because this is the part of the story where things stop making sense and start becoming terrifying. Yasuko and Niina hid upstairs. Frightened. Trapped. The killer found them. Both were stabbed repeatedly. Far beyond what was necessary. An act of rage or something darker. Experts say the killer showed no hesitation. No remorse. No humanity. Niina, only 8 years old, suffered the most wounds. As if the killer's anger was directed at her specifically. Or as if something inside him snapped completely. In that moment, the house became silent. For lives lost. For futures stolen. But the story does not end there. Because after killing the family, the murderer stayed. The killer who made himself at home. He ate. He drank. He rested. And in the process, he left behind more clues than almost any killer in modern history. Clues that should have solved the case instantly. But didn't. This is what makes this case unlike any other. The killer didn't flee. He remained inside the house for hours. He ate their food, drank their tea, used their toilet and didn't flush, used their computer, sat in their living room, left his clothes behind. He bled in the sink. He bandaged himself with their towels. He slept on their couch. He acted like the house belonged to him. This wasn't panic. This wasn't fear. This was comfort. Calm. Control. And that is why investigators still believe the killer was not afraid of being caught. Because he may not have believed he would be. The mountain of clues left behind. DNA. Fingerprints. Footprints. Clothes. Blood. It was as if the killer wrote his name all over the crime scene and still managed to stay invisible. The question is, how? This is the strangest part. Most killers hide their identity. This one left it everywhere. He left footprints, handprints, clothing, blood, fingerprints, DNA, his belt, his scarf, his bag, his handkerchief, his tools, his fingerprints on the computer mouse. DNA revealed that the killer was male, Asian, part Japanese, part Korean, part Southeast Asian, possibly lived on or near a U.S. military base. Likely born between 1970 to 1985. Blood type A. Sweat type B. Height 5 feet 6 inches to 5 feet 8 inches. Slim build. Right-handed. Police found nearly everything they needed to identify him. Except him. Because he has never matched anyone in Japan's national DNA database. The suspect profile. The profile painted a picture of someone young, unstable, and deeply disturbed. But if they knew so much about who he was, why couldn't they find where he was? The answer may lie, not in forensics, but in motive. Experts reconstructed the killer's psychological profile. He was likely young, male, athletic, familiar with climbing fences, emotionally detached, possibly suffered a recent personal loss, possibly unstable, possibly connected to military families, possibly transient. His behavior suggested a sudden explosion of violence, followed by eerie calm, followed by careless comfort. This wasn't a professional, not an assassin, not a hired killer. This was someone on the edge of breaking. And inside the house, he broke completely. Theories that still haunt Japan. Random stranger. Personal grudge. Military connection. Each theory explains something. But none explain everything. And while detectives debated possibilities, time quietly began to erase the trail. Over 20 years later, investigators still debate what really happened. First theory, a random stranger. A man jumped the fence from the nearby skate park, saw an open window, entered on impulse. But random criminals don't stay for hours. They don't eat food. They don't relax after murder. Second theory, personal grudge. Someone hated the family. Someone held resentment. But the Miyazawas were universally loved. Polite. Gentle. No enemies. Third theory, military connection. Clothing left behind was linked to U.S. base surplus. DNA suggests mixed Japanese-Korean heritage common around military stations. A transient. A drifter. A lost soul passing through. Fourth theory, mentally unstable loner. Someone who acted on sudden violent impulse. Someone who felt safe inside the home after the murders. Someone who didn't understand the severity of what he had done. This theory aligns with his actions. Chaotic, detached, emotionally fractured. Why the case remains unsolved. Hundreds of officers, thousands of interviews, decades of work, and still no name. To understand why this case refuses to close, we have to step outside the evidence and look at the one thing that hasn't changed since that night. The house itself. Japan threw thousands of officers into the case. More than 250,000 investigators over the years. Millions of dollars. Door-to-door questioning. Genetic studies. Footprint studies. Behavioral analysis. The result? Nothing. The killer vanished. Just as quietly as he entered the home. No DNA matches. No arrests. No digital trail. No financial trail. Almost as if he didn't exist before that night and disappeared after it. The house still stands. The house is still there. Silent. Untouched. Waiting. It holds a story written in dust and memory. And maybe, in a locked room or sealed wall, an answer no one has seen yet. Even today, the Miyazawa home remains frozen in time. Untouched. Preserved. Locked behind police barriers. Plants grow around it. Dust gathers. Windows remain closed. Lights remain off. A monument to a family destroyed. A ghost in the middle of a quiet neighborhood. People who pass by look away. Some whisper prayers. Others cross the street. The house is a wound Japan has not healed from. The final mystery. So, if the killer's blood is known, his clothing examined, his path reconstructed, and his crime scene preserved, then what's missing isn't evidence. What's missing is the one person willing to say his name. If the killer left behind everything, clothing, blood, fingerprints, DNA, why has he never been found? Two possibilities remain. One, he left Japan immediately after the murders. Returned to another country. Another military base. Another life. Two, he is dead. A life of violence, self-destruction, or suicide after the killings. Either way, the killer may never face justice. The quiet that never left. The Setagaya family massacre is not just a case. It is a scar. A silence. A house that still stands, waiting for answers that never came. For innocent lives ended. A killer who moved like a ghost. Evidence that should have solved everything. And a police force that refuses to give up. 2 decades later, one truth remains. Someone out there knows who he is. Someone remembers him. Someone hides a secret that could solve this case in a single sentence. But until that moment comes, the Setagaya murders remain one of the darkest mysteries Japan has ever known.